Well, as the week comes to a close, we're still getting new information on the tragic shooting that took place today in Newtown, Connecticut. Now, in Newtown, Connecticut, today, a man killed his mother at home, then opened fire inside the elementary school where she taught. And the rampage claimed 26 lives, including 20 children, before the 20-year-old killer, carrying 2 handguns, committed suicide at the school, bringing the death toll to 28, as authorities have said. A custodian ran through the halls, warning of a gunman, and someone switched on the intercom, alerting people in the school to the attack, which apparently started in the school office. A law enforcement officer who was briefed on the investigation said that the gunman was believed to suffer from a personality disorder.
Newtown is a Connecticut suburb of 27,000 people, about 60 miles northeast of New York City. The massacre was the nation's second deadliest school shooting, surpassed only by the Virginia Tech shooting that claimed 33 lives in 2007. President Obama made an emotional statement at the White House earlier today.
I know there's not a parent in America who doesn't feel the same overwhelming grief that I do. The majority of those who died today were children. Beautiful little kids between the ages of 5 and 10 years old.
The president also made a statement about the need for gun control, despite not having passed any such legislation during his first term.
These neighborhoods are our neighborhoods, and these children are our children. And we're going to have to come together and take meaningful action to prevent more tragedies like this, regardless of the politics.
So, Nancy, I mean, as a parent, you're the only parent of us three here. We heard what the president said. How did you react to this today?
I mean, in this exact same way. It's your first thought is so many lives taken before they get a chance to do anything. And you spend the first few years just coddling them and trying to protect them from everything. And if there's one place that's supposed to be safe, it's an elementary school.
Yeah.
And I know that so many parents across the country, in a knee-jerk reaction, they go to school and they pick up their kid and they hold them tight, even though that's just a reaction, but it's our reaction as a parent and to this tragedy, and to just think that it was someone's son who committed this crime makes it even worse.
It's an incredibly, horrific and tragic thing, and as we've spoken about all day, unfortunately, we've seen the number of mass shootings rise. It seems like they are just becoming more frequent, and hopefully there will be some kind of collective action now, or retrospection into just looking into what really is going on and how you can actually address it this time. But I think that when you see children at such a young age, 5 to 10 years old today, that's what really hits home for a lot of people. If
you have someone, I mean, it just seems to get worse. At first, it's like, oh no, you're attacking high school students. Well, you can rationalize this. Maybe he was bullied by the high school students. Oh no, you're attacking your college classmates. Maybe there was someone in that class that did something to you. There was no elementary school student that could have done anything to warrant a remotely reactive experience like this.
And that gets around to the discussion we had earlier about mental illness and how there aren't adequate, measures to take care of people that are mentally ill in this country and to prevent a senseless tragedy like this from happening. And, as Alyona said, we're seeing spontaneous protests and movements and vigils around the country, one in front of the White House today, to hopefully force our leaders in Washington, D.C. and around the country to do something about this. So I think that, obviously this is going to be something that we're talking about through the weekend and into next week and for a long time to come. And as President Obama gets into his second term here, hopefully we see this as something that's a legislative priority for him.
And it's just one of those things that there has to be an answer. Even if, let's say the answer ends up being that gun control doesn't work. Let's try it. Let's try something and then say, okay, it didn't work. Here are the restrictionless guns. But we just are skirting around this big issue that not only do we have these mentally ill individuals, we're giving them these weapons that have no place in any sort of society. There's no reason for them to exist outside of war, and even then that's questionable. And to be able to just pick one up and go to an elementary school and cause such devastation just doesn't seem how anyone can defend that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's, where the big divide lies, too. Clearly, it's a very divisive issue within the country. And, some of the points that were made today in the conversations that we had, too, is just the fact that, well, these guns are out there. now. You can't just close the box and stuff them all back in, and now you have these guns on the streets. And so you have to really figure out, what the way is to address it, because even, as the reports were saying today about the shooter, these were his mother's, or the registered
his mom's
weapons,
guns, yeah.
and so that's how he obtained them.
Well, sure, but I mean, then you do have these communities where you think that it wouldn't work, but there are communities that do have things like guns for toys, where they're making a conscious effort to minimize the number of guns, and so you can come in and give a handgun, no questions asked, and swapped out for a toy. And we've seen success in communities with initiatives like this, but it's just creating a culture where it makes sense. I mean, I always liken things like this. When seatbelts were first introduced, no one wanted to wear them. When car safety, when car seats for children were first introduced, no one wanted their kids were wanted to continue sliding around in the back. But the more people that get behind an issue from the top down, the saner it seems.
And one thing I have to point out too, which I've seen a lot of, is there are some people that will say, well, it's not the time for a knee-jerk reaction, and so we don't necessarily need to talk about this today. Of course, we've seen horrific tragedies and things happen in the past, and a lot of people have been pointing to 9/11 and the overreaction to 9/11, right? The way that we've really handled security. But this is not a knee-jerk reaction, because this is a conversation that's been going on for a long time. Unfortunately, like I said, we see this happen over and over and over again. So it's not just some random one-off that people are reacting to emotionally and irrationally. It's time to really talk about it realistically.
And that's what we're trying to do here today. That's the whole point of what we were doing earlier today, which is, some people say now's not the time to talk about gun control. Now is not the time to talk about solutions or how to prevent these kind of things from happening. It's time to think about the victims. And of course, it's time to think about the victims. But if not now, when? And this is the same thing that was said after Aurora, after Virginia Tech, after Columbine, and after all the mass shootings in this country. And think about how many that we've had. And so that's why today, and if you're watching HuffPost Live, that's why we had these conversations today, and why we'll continue to have them moving forward, because these are things that unless we talk about them, nobody's going to do anything about it.
I mean, it's the perfect time to really take this conversation seriously. President Obama does not have to worry about re-election. The emotions are high. We're at an all-time high.
Right.
This is a problem. There is a solution. Why not get started on it? There's no reason not to.